Our guest today is Dr. Jagdish Sharma. Dr. Jagdish Sharma, welcome to the Foundation for Indian Studies and Indo-American Oral History. We are delighted to have you.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Let's start with, what part of India you come from, and tell us something about your background in India.
I come from an erstwhile princely state in northwestern India called Jodhpur.
Jodhpur, I see.
And I was born there on 30th of November 1931.
Yeah.
And my early education was locally in the schools, and in those days the schools were not like what they are today. And education was sort of in a haphazard manner, and Jodhpur was sort of relatively considered sort of backward, and the Maharaja did a lot of developments, but in my opinion the education was lacking behind.
Yeah. So where did you do your medical school?
Then after I graduated from intermediate, that is 12th grade, in Jaswant College, Jodhpur, I went to, in 1952, I went to Jaipur, which was a neighboring city, for my MBBS.
I see,
And I graduated from there in 5 years, in 1956. Following that, I did my residency and internship in that place.
So when did you come to the United States?
Well, let me back off a little bit, and from Jaipur, I finished the MBBS degree and residency and internship, and then I went to Lucknow, that is in Uttar Pradesh.
I see.
And that is where I did my research in epidemic encephalitis and wrote the thesis.
I see.
And worked towards the MD degree, because for our American audience, MBBS is the basic medical degree in India, and MD is like the boards in internal medicine. So that is what I did, and then I joined the Western Railway, and I was posted in Ajmer, which is in Rajasthan.
I see,
And as an internist, and I was in charge of the medical ward. And at that time, we were markedly limited, primarily by the medical knowledge. I am talking about the early 60s. Medical knowledge was not as advanced as it is half a century later, now at this point. And so I saw, a lot of patients with congestive heart failures and myocardial infarctions dying right there in front of me, and so...
I guess that's not a whole lot we could do.
That is true. And so then I thought that I must specialize in something to advance and do something above and beyond the rest. And there was need for specialization in India at that time. There was no specialization in cardiology or neurology, or just internal medicine was it. And so then I decided to come to America for specialization. So I took my ECFMG examination, and in 1964 I came to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, as the first place, and I was there for 1 year. Let's say I have beautiful and pleasant memories about that place. And then I went to Boston in Massachusetts, and there I did my residency in neurology.
Neurology, I see,
And
how many years were you in Boston?
I was in Boston for 4 years.
4 years, I see,
And it's a beautiful place and very cultural. And very high in education and culture.
I see,
And, Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School and MIT and Boston University, and that's where I was in the Boston University.
Boston University.
And completed my residency, became board eligible. And then I returned to India. I thought that I am fully armed. I had the MD in internal medicine.
So you had intention of going back to India after postgraduate training?
Absolutely. Absolutely. At that time, I had no intention of staying in this country, and I said that I will go back and serve my country. And I was 100%.
That's very interesting.
That was 100% positive that I will get a lecturership or professorship in one of the many medical schools. At that time, there were almost 70 or 80 medical schools in India.
I see.
And so, with all the bag and baggage, I returned to India. But then I had a shock of my life that I went to several medical schools, but they just shook their head that, oh, unfortunately we have no openings, and if you want to work here, you are welcome, but we have no job opening. I said, how do you create job opening? And then I was told that, well, you have to have some, if you know some minister or somebody in the politics or some secretary in the bureaucracy, and then it would be possible. I said, I know none of them. So I joined, at that time there was an entity called the Scientists Pool. So people who obtained higher education in this country went back to India, and that was a temporary stop, and then they could get some other job or whatever have you. So I was in Scientists Pool for 1 year, and they wanted me to extend it and keep on working in Willingdon Hospital. But I said that I need a position or a job, because at that time they were paying me, I was getting 600 rupees a month in the pool. So then I tried private practice, and because I did not have any political connections or any, bureaucratic connection, government connections, and also unfortunately the climate was such that it was mutual. If you do something for me, I do something for you. And unfortunately the doctors were not too much concerned about the benefit of the patients, and so they wanted something in return from me, and so
it's kind of sad, after you spend your...
That did not work out. So we were really in difficult situation in Delhi at that time in 1969, 1970, and really difficult time. And it came to the point where I had to make a decision whether to continue living in India, because really speaking, I had to borrow some money at that point, and so then I decided, let me go back to USA. And so I got in touch with my previous professor, and he found a position for me in Houston. So that was 1971. And so that's when I applied for the immigrant visa, and immediately I got the immigrant visa, and I came to Houston.
So which institution did you join in Houston?
I was at the Methodist Hospital in Texas Medical Center, in Baylor College of Medicine.
Oh, I see. So, and I guess you spent most of your years at the Texas Medical Center.
I was there at that time. I was there for a short while, and then I went for a fellowship to North Carolina. I did fellowship in EEG, electroencephalography, and after finishing that fellowship, I returned to Houston, and then at that time I joined Dr. Hauser in his practice, and I worked with him for 3 years, and in 1975 I went on my own private practice. And since then I've been a solo neurologist.
Solo neurologist? I think that's sort of what I would say is like a vanishing breed of medical practice.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that at that time there were very few neurologists in Houston.
Yeah.
And so I started my work initially in the medical center, but then more patients were coming from the north.
Yeah.
So then we established another office at Memorial Northwest. And then I realized that a lot of my patients were coming from 1960s. So,
I see.
It's one of those things that you have to be close to your patients. And so I moved my practice on 1960.
Oh, I see, yeah. So, tell us your first experience in Houston. I mean, obviously you lived in Boston and you done for your training. How was Houston when it's, of course, part of the South and it's Texas. People have different conceptions about Texas, those who live in the north side.
True. But let me tell you that Houston was a wonderful place to live in 1971, and it's a wonderful place to live in 2011.
Yeah.
Okay, after 40 years, I have the same opinion. Number one thing I would mention is that what makes a city is the people.
Yes.
People are friendly. People are charitable. They are very philanthropic, and that's why you see the theater center and all the other public institutions and medical center and the places like that, and
even the universities,
yes, that is what makes the place richer.
That's true. That's true.
And at that time, it's interesting that the Galleria was finished and the loop system was finished. There was no beltway, and at that time the Wortham Center was not there, but there was that Albert Thomas Convention Hall in downtown, which is not there anymore.
That's true.
And most interestingly, there was the Astro World.
Astro World was there.
Yes, which is not there anymore. But now we have the Wortham Center, the theater district downtown. At that time, downtown was actually in the decline in the sense that it was alive during the work time.
I see,
8 to 5.
I see,
8 to 5, everybody left downtown. And so, in the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years, there has been a movement to revitalize downtown. And so now there are many hotels, the convention center, the huge big Hilton Americas, and some boutique hotels like Icon and Magnolia and things like that, and many restaurants, and some famous restaurants have started in downtown in the vicinity of the ballpark, which is also a new creation, just like the George R. Brown Convention Center, the Minute Maid Park, and so the hotels and the restaurants, and now we have the metro all along Main Street.
That's true. Yes.
And which wasn't there at that time, and so all these things are revitalizing. And let me not forget the theater district.
That's true. Yes.
We have the Wortham Center for the Performing Arts, where we have Houston Ballet and Houston Grand Opera. Then next door is the Alley Theater, and then of course Jones Hall, and for the Houston Symphony.
And next door is also the Hobby Center, which is
and then the Hobby Center. Yes.
Coming to Houston, I mean, obviously, as I said, coming to Houston. With the cultural differences that we had from India, what kind of challenges did you perceive or come across when you moved to Houston? Cultural, ethnic, and maybe perhaps even language differences. How it made a difference when you came to Houston?
It's an interesting question, and It depends on the individual how you get the response to that question. And I will say this thing that in this case here, every story is going to be different because every story is very personal and unique. And every story will have its high points and low points, what we go through and our achievements and our pride and pleasure and our success and failures and things like that. So going to your point and going back also, when I decided to emigrate to this country, to leave one's own country and the culture and the friends and the places which are familiar, it's not easy. And then come to a foreign land where everything is different, everything is new. And then you have to face the challenges of learning so many things new, and of course we may speak English, but then you have to learn the accent.
That's why I said, even though we know the language, but our accent and our the way we present, and we don't know the American colloquial language which people speak, and we are at a loss when we are communicating with nurses or patients.
And in Texas, you speak Texan.
That's right. That's another stuff. That's why I specifically stressed that even though you were in Boston, when you come to Houston, it's like, Texas is like it's almost a separate. It's a separate state, but it's considered as a separate country in terms of its customs and all these things.
Yeah, of course. Boston was the culture. The people in Boston were more on the reserve side.
I see.
Whereas in Houston, they were open arms.
I see. That's
friendly and open. So that's the difference in the personalities of these two cities.
So when you say they are more open, are we talking people in general, or are we talking about patients, or the people with whom you worked, or like the business community, or?
I would say people in general. And that includes the patients, that includes my colleagues, that includes stores where I go to shop, and that includes whatever, So that is, I think, the character of, and this is what has made Houston. Now, fortunately, we are blessed by the industry here, which has been a magnet for jobs. And in 1971, when I came here first time, Houston was relatively a smaller city. And now it's, imagine 5 million population and the fourth largest city in the country. And the forecast is that the job market in Houston is going to be good for the foreseeable future.
That's very unique, because even though we see, we already gone through one recession and we are on the verge of going through a second recession from all counts, but Houston has somehow weathered most of these storms.
It's amazing. It's amazing how it has done, and Houston might have gone into a mild so-called recession, but it has always survived. And
what are the changes have you seen in the last 30, 40 years since you came to Houston in 1970, you say?
Yes. Of course, the petrochemical industry has not changed, except that it has expanded. The other major factor in Houston is the medical center, and that keeps on growing. And it is the largest medical center in the whole world by number of beds and the variety of the institutions. You cannot imagine anything in the medical field which has not been addressed there. Means the research and the treatment and the patient care and everything goes hand in hand. So that is the second major entity in Houston.
I see,
And then the third one is of course, the banking and arts and culture and things like that. And Johnson Space Center, of course, was a major employer.
Yes.
But not anymore. It has been sort of trimmed.
Yeah.
So we lost that, but again, more opportunities are arising, and I think the petrochemical industry and the medical center are going to sustain. The more and more petrochemical companies are moving into Houston, and now if the pipeline from Oklahoma and also from Canada, somewhere in Canada, it comes to here all the way to Port Arthur. That is going to bring thousands and thousands of jobs.
I see. Well,
and now Houston has grown and it has expanded, and the Beltway 8.
Yes.
Now it has been, 10 or 15 years it has been there, and then 290 in the northwest and 288 in the south, and so wherever these highways are built, it's followed by subdivisions.
Oh,
so
yes.
the homes keep on growing and crawling in that direction.
It looks like Houston is just spreading in all directions.
In all directions, and now on the plan and partly constructed is the Grand Parkway. 99 around the Beltway, outside the Beltway.
So we are talking 610, then Beltway 8, Highway 6. Now we have 99.
Yes.
So Houston is going to be like 60 miles.
Yes.
Just from one end to the other.
Actually, I think if you measure it from north to south, it is about 40 miles.
Yeah.
Or maybe 45 miles in its radius. So it's expanding.
It is, because when I drive from Sugar Land to the airport, it's almost like 45, 50 miles.
Yes, and now the bill is in front of the City Hall to expand the urban limits from Loop 610 to Beltway 8. And what it will mean, that they will allow the developers to build high-density residences.
Oh, I see.
And so they can build, multi-story condominiums, townhouses, and make it denser, like it is in downtown. And there is, of course, naturally some opposition from certain communities. But let us see what happens.
One of the things in Houston is that you don't have proper zoning regulations, which makes some people happy, some people not so happy.
Very true.
Let's talk about your family. Tell us about your family, your children.
Yes, I live with my wife. We have 3 children. We have 1 daughter and 2 sons.
Yeah.
And both sons are married. They have their children, and their spouses are, one is a physician and the other one is a dentist.
I see. Yeah.
And my son is an ophthalmologist. The other son is MD and DDS.
Yeah.
My daughter is a DDS, and her husband is a maxillofacial surgeon.
Yeah.
And so
everybody is a doctor.
Yes, everybody is doctor in the family, doctor, MD or DDS.
Yeah.
And from my 3 children, I have, thank God, 8 grandchildren.
I see. Yeah.
Amongst them, 7 are boys and 1 girl.
So that will give you plenty of time to play with all these children.
Indeed.
Okay, let's talk about as to what has happened to the Indian culture and heritage over the years since we have immigrated to this country?
Very good question. What has happened to Indian culture and heritage? If you look at our background, Indians have been emigrating, going here and there, all over the world.
That is true, yeah.
And I would say that you'll find an Indian doing business in most of the countries of the world.
That's true, yeah.
And why it is so, why it happened, there's Indian diaspora.
Yeah.
And why it happened, because we have an entrepreneurial spirit. We are adventurous, and then we are thinking and intelligent people. And we have good work ethics, we have good family values. And this is not only now, Dr. Nikam, this is since generations and generations, and this is in our genes. And I hope that it continues. And so, wherever Indians have gone, they have succeeded. Whether they are in the East Indies, like Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, or they are in West Indies, or in Africa, or in Europe. Previously, business was the motive.
I see, yeah.
And of course, essentially, why do people migrate or go from one place to another is to seek for opportunities.
I see, yeah.
So at that time, most of the people went for businesses, and then now what is happening is that education has become more important in our lives, and so we are becoming more and more educated, and so then we seek for educational opportunities, and the same thing happened in my case, that I was fully qualified, but did not get an opportunity to work in India, and therefore I had to leave India and come to this country.
Maybe it was a blessing.
Well, that time will tell. And let me tell you, as you say, it's a blessing. Yes, I accept that, but when we leave our country and emigrate to another country, it's not only that we bring ourselves, but we bring our family, we bring our children, and then the grandchildren and the future generations. And so it's not only one individual who emigrates. With him, there may be hundreds and thousands of people, of his descendants, who come to this country. And wherever Indians have gone, they have maintained their cultural heritage. They have maintained their religious identity. The beauty about Hindu religion is that it's very contemporaneous. And what it means that it keeps on changing, modifying and adjusting according to time. There have been different epochs in the 5,000 years of Indian history, or 10,000 years of Indian history. And from time to time, there have been, in the religion, there have been some rishi munis and some sages and some sadhus who appeared from time to time to make adjustments in the religion, so that the religion does not become a bitter pill, but it becomes such that everybody can adhere to, and everybody can abide by, and everybody can worship his deity according to his style. So therefore you see that the Hindu religion is held by Hindus very tenaciously. Of course, there have been instances where people have sort of jumped the line, and but those instances are rare.
You know, it's kind of interesting. Most Indians have immigrated to English-speaking countries, and most Indians do have a pretty good grip on not only Indian English but also the foreign countries they immigrate to. And with that, do you think it becomes difficult for the new generation Indians, the second and the third generation, to keep up with the Hindu culture, religion, and philosophy and all this, unless they are educated in maybe both Indian and English languages?
My point of view, Dr. Nikam, is this. The traditions start from the family, the parenting. And at a young age, if the children are taught our cultural values and religious values, they will stick in their mind and they will grow up following those principles. And as I said that Hindu religion is a beautiful religion. It does not have any compulsory doctrines or compulsory rules or regulations, and so it's rather cosmopolitan, and you can worship it in your own style the way you want. And religion, I think, is important in human life because it forms, as I put it, the moral backbone. It keeps us on the right track.
It is true,
and it steers us in the right direction. And therefore religion is important.
Let's switch topics, and as the second generation Indians are all growing, and most of them are established as professionals and all this, and we see an increasing number of interracial marriages, which was not prevalent in India. Of course, it was more or less looked upon as something that was not good when people married in different castes in India. But now we are talking about different races altogether. So what are your thoughts on this particular issue, because it is real and it is expanding as the new generation is coming to the forefront?
If you look at the history, in this country, different ethnic groups, people from different countries, they came to America, and then gradually, of course, first they were living in their own little communities, but then there was assimilation, and they got assimilated in the large American population. What is large American population? It is made up of mostly all the European countries, but then now we have the Latin American, African and Asian influences. So this is essentially a melting pot, and people come here seeking opportunities, and here it's a wonderful country which offers the opportunities from whoever has something valuable to deliver. And what we deliver is our intellect. And so going back to what was the second part of your question?
No, as these people, get involved with the interracial marriages.
Yes. That, unfortunately, in my opinion, is inevitable. And proper parenting, strong cultural and religious influences, and family values will perhaps prevent interracial marriages. Why do we have interracial marriages? That is a difficult question, because I have one of my children has interracial marriage.
Yeah.
And of course, we have no complaints, and it's wonderful. So it's not that one race is superior than the other, but this is our feeling that we want to preserve our heritage and our culture and our religion. And in general, I think it will be done. But then on the periphery, there may be influences where, these things are unavoidable, inevitable.
Yeah, I think these things happen, and we just maybe we try our best to steer our children in the direction which we think is most suitable for them in the long run. But at the same time, we think that's. But of course, our beliefs are based on thousands of years of Hindu culture and scriptures, which has laid down certain principles of life, which like truth, being honest and faithful, and things like that, which really helps to maintain a chorus family. I mean, that's the main purpose.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about, we talked about religion, interracial marriage, and let's talk about, are you involved in any kind of a social, cultural, spiritual, or philosophical entities?
Well, I think I'm very social.
That's right. Yeah.
And culturally, yes, in the sense that I do subscribe to a lot of cultural activities like the symphony, opera, ballet, and these things, and I support these institutions also. And on the religious side, of course, I used to be more, now I'm less active in the Hindu temple. And I think in the 80s, when I was more active, one of the things that we did was to make a monumental change, in the sense that to put the young generation in charge of the administration of the Hindu temple. Because who for do we build the temples? It's for the next generation, new generation. And so, rightly speaking, they should be taking part in the activities of the temple, and they should determine what kind of activities should be there to attract more young people and make it more, sort of suitable to their requirements. And did you ask me about professional or?
Any social religious organizations.
Yes.
Let's talk about the professional organization, and you were the first president of the Indian Doctors Association, but what was this, back in 1980? What year was it, 79 or 80?
Yes, I was working in the medical center at that time, in those days there was a lot of discrimination against foreign medical graduates. And so I thought that something has to be done along those lines to counter maybe the wrong impression that a lot of people have about the Indian doctors. In general, my impression is that the Indian doctors have always been held in very high regard. And when I talk to my colleagues, all of them are very much respected by their community and by their patients. And so, fortunately, there's an advantage we have. So the idea was conceived that we should have an organization of Indian doctors in Houston.
I see,
And so I sort of formalized.
So this was sort of an entrepreneurial idea, because there was no model to follow or anything like that.
So I started that, and I was the president for the first 2 years.
And I guess you were the only one who was president for 2 years in the history of Indian Doctors Association.
I used to handwrite the invitations. And then my friend Dr. Nainan Matthew, he took charge, and then on and on.
Yeah.
So, actually speaking, Indian Doctors Club predates
even API, the National Indian
and
Doctors Association.
TIPS, that is Texas
Yeah.
Indo-American Physicians
Physicians
Society,
yes.
and American Association of Physicians from India.
Yeah.
And even now, Indian Doctors Club, which has now changed the name to Indian Doctors Association,
Yes.
is very vibrant and very strong organization. They are doing a lot of good things, not only for themselves but also for the public, like holding the health mela and free clinics, and the charity clinic is an offshoot of them. And it has been well recognized. The charity clinic was one of the earlier charity clinics, and a lot of other clinics have followed that model.
That is true, yeah. It's been there, since 1990s, I think.
Or maybe longer.
Yeah.
And so, I hope the activities continue along those lines.
So what are your views on American politics?
American politics has been as active and vibrant as in the times of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I'm not too much politically savvy, but I think it's a good system. That it's a system of checks and balances, that the executive branch, the president, and then the legislative branch, and then the judiciary. And in the legislative, the Republicans and the Democrats. And things go very fairly in this country, which is remarkable, because in most of the other countries, there may be rigging of the votes and twisting of arms, and even I heard that in Russia the other day there were thousands of people in a procession against Putin.
Thousands of people.
Yes. So those things don't happen in this country, fortunately. And the elections are fair, and the candidates hold debates so that people can see and hear what their individual views are on many different issues which face the country. And
that is true.
Yeah.
What do you think holds for the future for the new generation Indians, our children and our grandchildren, from your perspective?
Well, that is again a very interesting question, and I would reiterate my view that by nature Indians are introverts. They are thinking people, they are intellectual people, and that's why we excel in business and education and sciences and that kind of mathematics and things like that. And then we have special values, cultural values, religious values, family values. And as long as the young generation is reared and trained along those lines, they will develop into intelligent, educated, law-abiding, cultured citizens. If we can do that, then the future will be bright. And actually, it has been bright, thank God, for this generation.
That is true, yes.
And like yourself, like myself, and a lot of our contemporaries came to this country, and because our education and our good work ethics, our sense of duty, our sense of service, our generally humble behavior. You are more humble than I am. And we have done very well. And so the first generation has done very well because of these values. And so similarly, if we inculcate these values in our future generations, they will keep on doing well. And this is what I am already seeing in our next generation. And now, what happens after the next generation, that is in nobody's control. We don't have anything in our control. And so, as long as we are honest and we do good work, we'll have to leave our future in the hands of Almighty.
Dr. Sharma, you have been pretty successful in your profession and also as a person. What are the things that propelled you? What are the foundations upon which you would say your success has been largely dependent, so that maybe we can take a message?
Oh my goodness. Well, it all started when I was very comfortable as an internist in Ajmer, and I got a little bit restless. I was there for 2 years, and so in the second year I got a little bit restless that I have to do something more. And as I said, over and above. And then I wanted to specialize, and that's what brought me over here. And what I would say that these are actually the universal values and universal truths, that hard work, honesty, service to humanity, and good family values.
That's true.
And I strongly believe that we have a beautiful religion, beautiful culture, and we actually don't have to look anywhere else for our spiritual satisfaction. Now, fortunately, we have so many temples, and it's convenient to go and enjoy some discourses and some pujas, some havans, things like that. And those are the basic and universal values which, I have nothing more to add in that respect, because we all have followed them, and that's what has helped us and enriched our lives.
It's fascinating, very fascinating. Dr. Sharma, thank you very much for coming here as a guest. I'm Dr. Nikam, and we appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'm Dr. Nikam. You are watching the Foundation for Indian Studies in Houston. This presentation is brought to you by the Indian-American Oral History in collaboration with the Houston Public Library. Thank you.